Welcome to Fantasy Football Today Dynasty. It's week one. I am your host, Heath Cummings, joined today by Dustin Ludke. We are going to get you set for week one. We'll have week one Dynasty waiver wire. We'll have talk about some of the preseason risers and fallers and whether we actually believe that those risers and fallers are going to stick. But I want to start by introducing Dustin. You can find him on Twitter at the DUNIT13. Done it 13. Dustin, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks, Heath. Thanks for having me on. It's been great. I know we tried to do this once before and I was on vacation. Dynasty is my wheelhouse, and I am so excited for week one. It feels like it's been a long off season. Me and you are never not busy. But I'm excited for week one to start in just a few days.
So why don't you tell everybody here at the start, like what you've been working on recently and where they can find your work.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the DUNIT13. That's the best place to find all my stuff. I write for Fantrax, so I will do our weekly wide receiver and tight end streamers and sleepers articles. Those come out Tuesday mornings. I am the content director at Dynasty Pros, so I help oversee the content there. And then I have my own podcast Tuesday nights live. It's called Bridge the Gap. So you can find the Tuesday nights live at 10 p.m. Eastern. We talk football topics. So tonight we have Wendy early on. We're going to talk going beyond the league and making friends, taking the league mates and how to make friends out of that, and how to make friends out of fantasy football. So a little bit of a different show, kind of topic based around some of these topics in the football universe. Give you some actionable information, but it's more about topics. That's the best place to find me. Twitter is the best place to find me. If you have questions, you can hit me up there.
Fantastic stuff. Andrew in the chat says that classic Bills pullover is incredible.
It's mine from the 90s when I was a teenager. It's old and crusty, doesn't fit anymore, but that is mine from the 90s.
That is outstanding. We always start with 3 questions for our guest, and this is your first time on the show. So you get the same first question that everyone does. You're starting a new Dynasty League. What is your one non-negotiable rule? And people have ruined this for you. You're not allowed to say Superflex.
No, it's not even a rule you can put on a platform, but the rule should be you have to pay for the seasons in which you trade picks in. So if you trade picks in 2026, you have to pay the entrance fee for that year. It prevents people from, and not maliciously, people don't go into going, I'm going to trade all my future picks and then just bail. The problem is they trade future picks thinking they can rebuild. They make, they draft a N'Keal Harry or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or a Josh Rosen, and they realize the rebuild's not going on, they bail, and then the league is stuck with this orphan team that doesn't have any pick assets, probably has a bad team, and that new person has to also pay the entrance fee. So the rule should be, if you trade future picks, you have to pay that entrance fee when you trade those picks.
100% agree. One of the best answers. Like a lot of the times we get answers to this question that are more subjective. That one's just objectively right. We're off to a great start, Dustin. Question number 2. We're going to talk in just a minute about who have been the biggest risers of the last month. But I want to know from you, like look into the crystal ball, who's going to be the biggest Dynasty riser in the next month?
I'm going to give you an outside name here, and it's Andre Yoshevach, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a good chance Jamar Chase doesn't play week one, right? He's won this contract. He hasn't practiced. They're saying it's day to day what's going to happen. Even if Chase plays, Andre Yoshevach will fill in the Tyler Boyd role. Now, Yoshevach didn't play a ton of slot snaps last year. He played 17% slot snaps last year. This preseason, that's up to 57, almost 58% slot snap share. So he's going to fill that Tyler Boyd role. We've seen Tyler Boyd be really good in that Cincinnati offense. And then if one of those big guys missed, whether that's Higgins or Chase, Boyd was able to step in and have big games. Andre Yoshevach can fill that. He had some good college years at Princeton, so smart guy. He's entering his second year, knows the system, can play all the different positions as wide receiver. So I think he's going to be a guy that's going to see work over the next couple of weeks, and he's going to be a riser. I think he's a big waiver wire pickup this week with Chase not playing. And then if injuries happen, or let's say Chase is off to a slow start because he hasn't practiced, I think Yoshevach will have the increase in volume, and I think he'll be the biggest riser we'll see over the next month.
He's one of the guys, and I will be I don't know what position I'm going to do tomorrow. The way I do it during the season is I just update one position every week. Yep. That way every position gets updated at least once a month. Yoshevach is just outside of my top 100 wide receivers, which he probably will be a riser for me. I do think that he's going to be the guy who plays more in 3 wide receiver sets early in the year. I also think if Chase or Higgins misses a significant amount of time, it's probably Burton that's going to get the bigger bump, filling in for those guys. But yeah, it's definitely probably a thing where I have some guys in my top 100 that I just need to move behind him. Yeah. And then he might get into the top 75 if he's as involved as you think he's going to be. Let's narrow our focus down a little bit. It's week 1. We've got a real football game in 2 days. Like what? 50 or 56 hours or something. Yeah. We're going to be watching real football, which is fantastic. What's the one thing you are most interested to learn in week 1?
I really want to know the carry share between Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas. I don't know what to make of it. Last year, it was like a 68-24 for Pollard to Dowdle. They ran the ball about 28 times, so if we carry those numbers over, you're looking at a 19-6 split between the two of them. I just don't know who's going to get most. Dowdle's only had 2 games of double-digit carries, like in his career, where Zeke has 6 games with 6 or more carries. So, like, Zeke has done really well last year. So, I just don't know. I'd love to know that because I think it's a value pick in your drafts late in your startup drafts or even your redraft. But I think if Dowdle can be the guy, I think he holds some value. If Zeke's the guy, then Dowdle's done, and we have to rethink that whole backfield after this year.
So this is one where, like, there's always the change between season-long rankings and week 1 rankings, and we just got the report from The Athletic basically saying that now Rico is more likely to be the leading rusher. I have hedged completely on this backfield. I have 10 rush attempts projected for Zeke, 10 rush attempts projected for Dowdle. Yeah. And I think like there's a handful of these. I want to see what the touches look like between Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, because I've kind of written Austin Eckler off. That might look dumb pretty quick. I want to see if Jahmyr Gibbs is actually going to get a larger workload like he was supposed to, or if the injuries over the offseason means he's not. I'd like to see like guys like Chuba Hubbard and Jerome Ford just went from outside of my top 30 in the season-long rankings to inside of my top 20 in week 1. Are they really going to be the workhorse backs that I think they're going to be? I think that listen, I'm going to try to write something this year on Sunday evenings, Monday mornings, kind of like what I'm changing in the projections for next week. And I'll be very, very cautious with week 1 because we've been fooled by week 1 a lot of times. But I will say, like, the one thing I will be watching is kind of what you just hit on with the Cowboys, with a variety of other teams. There's certain running back rooms that we're just completely speculating on. I've got a bonus here because Matt, one of my favorite commenters in the chat, he's always giving me a hard time. He wants you to ask me about my Josh Allen ranking.
What's your Josh Allen ranking, Heath?
I have him as QB3 in Dynasty. I have him as QB4 in redraft. I am a little bit worried about the fact that I'm not sure who his best wide receiver is, or if he even has a number 1 or high-end number 2 wide receiver on the team. And we just saw Patrick Mahomes finish outside of the top 8 fantasy quarterbacks, largely because his wide receivers were terrible.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. I have concerns about Josh Allen's health. He's at the hit mark between carries and sacks where we start to see quarterbacks break down that 1,100, 1,200 mark. I think he could miss a couple games this year, if not this year, probably early next year. So if he misses 2-3 games, he's definitely outside the top 10.
You know, I think it's a really good point to bring that up. And I've not made this comparison because Josh Allen is so much better as a passer than the name I'm getting ready to say. But when it comes to the size of the player and the types of hits that he takes, I can't think of a better comparison than Cam Newton. And Cam Newton, through his age 27 season, was really no worse for wear. And then age 28, you look at the first 6 seasons of his career, he basically had 1 year where he missed more than 1 game. And you look at the last 5 seasons of his career, he had 1 year where he missed fewer than 1 game. So I am a little bit concerned about the age as well. But I think you made a very good point, and I'm glad we got to get Matt from the chat on the screen. Let's take a quick break. Let's get into some week 1 waivers.
Oh, no! What the heck, bro? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I just got this thing out the shop. Hold on, let me get my insurance. Hey, FFT?
Yep.
Jamie Eisenberg. Yeah.
Hey, question for you.
Sure.
What do you think about Jackson Smith and Jigba as a wide receiver 3 in a 12-teamer this year?
Oh, wow. He could actually be really good. He's got to get that role, but if he does, you're going to be really happy about that.
Nice. You know what? Don't even worry about it.
Okay.
Love those commercials. They're fantastic. Somebody suggested that I should do one where I'm coaching a basketball team and get a tee from the ref, and then he asks me a question. I think that would be a really good one, although it'd take a lot of work to get it set up. I don't know how many people's kids are going to be willing to be in that shot, but we're going to start with some week 1 waivers. How exciting is that? We will do preseason risers and fallers after this. If we have time, I'm going to try to work in a couple of actual start-sit questions, because even though it's a Dynasty show, I understand you guys do have to make lineup decisions.
Yes.
Can we just try to only put your start-sit questions in the chat, though, if they're from your Dynasty league?
Yeah.
I have no way of holding you to this, but I'm just asking if you would. I've got 5 guys here who are rostered in less than 15% of CBS leagues. Not young, because if a rookie's rostered in 6% of leagues, I just assume those are all Dynasty leagues. A couple of running backs at the top, elderly running backs. Samaje Perine, 13% rostered. Jamal Williams, 12% rostered. I see everyone talking about Perine and worrying about what he might do to Isaiah Pacheco. I will say, at the very least, I think he's probably the handcuff to Pacheco as long as Clyde is out. But I don't see anybody talking about Jamal Williams. With Kendre Miller on the pup, I think he's the direct backup to an older back in Alvin Kamara. Are you interested in adding either one of these guys as depth pieces? This is the time of year where we maybe put the guys, we're dropping some guys, we're putting guys on pup. A few lineup spots are opening up. Perine and Jamal Williams, where are you at on these guys?
I'd rather have Perine than Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams just looked so bad last year. He had 106 carries, 1 touchdown, 306 yards, not great. I don't think Perine's all that great. I would feel more comfortable if Clyde Edwards-Helaire was out for an injury, because he's not. He's out for what I can understand, some mental stuff. He's got some PTSD he's dealing with. So that could be, he could rectify that and get some counseling and work through that, which I think is great. Right. And he could come back next week. It's not like he's got a hamstring where he's out 3 weeks. That's the diagnosis. Mental stuff can be a week, but it could also be 6. We don't know.
Right.
So I think I'd rather have Perine. He showed a little bit better. He's not great, but he's serviceable. Chiefs offense is creative. They'll find some work for him. The only reason why I think Jamal might be a little more benefit for week 1 is he knows the system. Perine just got there in Kansas City, but it's a better offense. So I think if I have to pick one, I'm picking up Perine just because he's got that better offense going for him.
And I saw someone in the chat that said it's Taysom is actually the backup to Kamara. And
that might be true too.
Taysom is going to have some carries, but I think we need to remember he's 34 years old. He's had more than 10 carries in a game in 2 games each of the last 2 seasons. Yeah. We've had time when Kamara has missed time, and it's not turned into 15 to 20 carries for Taysom Hill. I know he's an incredible athlete and doing really fun things, and he would benefit if Kamara was out, but some other running back would touch the ball 15 to 20 times. The first month of the season, that would definitely be Jamal Williams. At tight end, a couple of guys there as well. Greg Dulcich, 8% rostered, and he's kind of a young guy, but not a rookie. He was definitely dropped on some teams over the last year and a half and sitting on some Dynasty waiver wires. He might, now it's Sean Payton, and there is a former Saint on the team. So I don't want to say guaranteed, but he might just be the number 2 target in this passing game early in the year. He's a must add for me. And then Colby Parkinson, another one of those guys that in my season long rankings wasn't that excited about, landed in my top 20 tight ends this week, filling in for Tyler Higbee. What about Dulcich and Parkinson?
Yeah, I love Dulcich. I think you're right. He could be the second option behind Courtland Sutton. We just don't know what's happening in Denver in terms of pass catchers. They like Adam Troutman. Adam Troutman played with the 1s in preseason. Dulcich was mixed in, but he was also mixed in with the 2s. But Greg Dulcich is a skilled player. We saw it 2 years ago. It's just been injuries that have kept him off the field, not play. So I'm totally buying up Dulcich everywhere I can get him. He's been a late add for me in my drafts this past weekend. The opportunity is there because it's Courtland Sutton and then who? There's no one left. Marvin Mims is not that great.
Probably Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, Josh Reynolds is still Josh Reynolds. Like, he can't stay healthy either. So Bo Nix is good. Troy Franklin's out there. Like, I think Dulcich is worth a add, because if he is serviceable and you can flex him in and you need a flex spot, or you can go in if you get injured, like, he's never going to be a top 10 tight end, right? But he could be a top 20 tight end every week, and that's good enough for you.
Andrew mentions, and we talked about this, like I'm leaving some of the lower owned young guys out because we talked about them last week. Devon Vele apparently is going to have a role as well.
Yes.
In Denver. Would you rather make a speculative ad on a Reynolds or Vele, or would you rather offer a third and try to go get Marvin Mims?
I'm completely out. I've said for the longest time Marvin Mims is just not good. Like, he's just not worth having. I like Vele. I think he's a great ad. Like, he's young. We don't know. He seems to be outplaying Troy Franklin, which is big. But I think I'd still rather have Dulcich. I've seen Dulcich be good on an NFL film. I have not seen Vele be good in an NFL game.
Right. And Mr. Popinski, a couple of deep cuts from tight end, Brevin Jordan and Stone Smart. I like the Brevin Jordan call a lot more than the Stone Smart call. I actually almost put Hayden Hurst on this list.
Yeah.
He might see 6 or 7. I mean, that's the thing. We've talked a lot about how much Greg Roman likes to run the ball, but he generally has a huge tight end involvement in the passing game as well. And we just have completely ignored all the Chargers tight ends.
Yeah, we really have.
And Donald Parham got cut, so he's not even there anymore. I think Will Dissly is, but he's more of a blocker. I wanted to talk about 4 guys who rose for me this preseason. Get your take, Dustin, on whether you think they're actual legitimate risers or if it's just smoke and mirrors and they are who they were earlier this summer. The first one in terms of dynasty rankings, Tua Tagovailoa. We saw a lot of quarterbacks who got contract deals that kind of increased their security. The difference for me with Tua is he now has Waddle locked up. He has Tyreek locked up for 3 years. Tyreek, who was talking about maybe only playing 1 more year, something changed that caused him to want to play a lot more football. And Mike McDaniel now locked up. And I think that makes a big deal because that offense, the efficiency we've seen from it, really probably very correlated with the arrival of Mike McDaniel. So this Dolphins offensive system is going to be together for the next 3+ years. Is that a big boost for Tua for you, or you just kind of think he is who he's been?
No, I think it's a big boost. And what I liked was what I saw in preseason from them. Last year in the preseason, they threw the ball 56% of the time. In the regular season, it was 57%. This year in the preseason, they threw the ball 64% of the time. So if that trend continues, we could see a big increase in passing plays from the Dolphins. Mike McDaniels talks about football just differently. He talks about it like it's a math equation at times. Listen at the combine, he sounds different. And the running backs they brought in who can catch passes, you have Devin Achane, you have Raheem Mostert, you have now Jalen Wright. Yeah, they don't have a great third wide receiver. We're looking at like Parker Washington or whoever, Malik Washington. They don't really have a tight end that they use. I don't think it matters. I think he just sees players and he just has this beautiful mind where it's just these numbers and he just moves guys around. I'm all in on Tua. Like, he got paid. They've backed him. I think that's always been a lingering question for Tua is the team really going to back me? Obviously, they picked him over Brian Flores. I think the fact that he got paid shows like we're all in on you. You're our guy. We're going to continue to equip you, build the offensive line, which they did last year. I'm all in on Tua. I think he should be higher. I think he's criminally underrated right now.
Outstanding. He is my QB 12 right now in Dynasty. Yep. So about 5 to 6 spots higher, depending on what consensus look you're looking at. Now, Jimmy brings up a good point. He says, Tyreek is 30, Heath. You don't like 30-year-olds. I want to clarify my stance on older pass catchers. It is if they show you signs of decline, believe it. He has shown you no signs of decline. No. Like, he may have his best year ever this year. So I am completely fine with Tyreek Hill. At running back, Jerome Ford. Like, we all kind of expected that Nick Chubb would not be the starting running back the first month of the season. I think there's now speculation it might be until mid-season. I don't know if Nick Chubb will ever be Nick Chubb again. Deontay Foreman was supposed to be pretty significant competition for Jerome Ford. That doesn't appear to be the case either. I'm viewing Jerome Ford as an RB2 for the first half of the season and maybe something even in the second half. Do you agree that he's a big riser that will stick, or are we selling off this news?
I'm fine with him to start the season. If I'm in a draft and I have to have someone, if I'm waiting for a Jonathan Brooks to come back, I'm all open for it. So redraft, yes, I'm in on him for this season. Dynasty, I'm completely out on Jerome Ford. I think I'd ride him a couple weeks and then trade him high. Nick Chubb's going to come back. I think Nick Chubb will be fine when he comes back. The problem is with Jerome Ford, he's going to be a free agent after 2025. So going into 2026, he's going to be 27 years old. And looking at that class of potential free agents, it's a who's who right now, right? I mean, it's Ken Walker, it's that whole Najee Harris, it's that whole draft class. I just don't see a landing spot for Jerome Ford in Dynasty after this year. Like, where does he go? What do they do with him? Is he just going to be rotational with Nick Chubb for the Browns? They have to re-sign Nick Chubb, which I think they do. They kind of restructured his deal, so I think they're all in on Nick Chubb. I'm selling high on Jerome Ford. I think his value has gone up, and if he has a good 4 weeks, and I can trade him off at the peak of his price, I'm willing to do that.
A wide receiver who was a preseason riser, and everybody who listens to my show knows it because it's all I've talked about for the last 2 weeks, but it's Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
We thought he was getting suspended this year. It looks like if that happens, it will happen in 2025. The Chiefs just keep raving about how he's in better shape. He understands the offense better. He played almost all of the snaps with Patrick Mahomes and had a target per route run over 30%. I think this is the guy that leads the Chiefs in basically all receiving categories this season. He had fallen to around wide receiver 30, up to around wide receiver 20 for me now in Dynasty, and maybe still rising. Are you just all in on Rashee Rice?
I'm all in. I never was out. If you take away the off the field issues and the potential suspension, you go receiver attached to Patrick Mahomes, had a really good rookie year, all the rave reviews about him. You just go, oh, man, he should be a top 15 wide receiver. Like, he's Amon-Ra St. Brown to me 2 years ago, where it was like, hey, this guy had a great rookie year. We got a better quarterback. He's progressing, but the drumbeat just going. The suspension now, I never thought he was getting suspended this year because they always wait for the legal proceedings to finish. And you knew that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. At most, he gets 6 games. He probably gets 6, pleads it down to 3. 3 games is no big deal. Like, most people miss 3 games because of injury anyway. You can't not have the wide receiver 1 in a Patrick Mahomes offense. That's just, you can't not have that. And so you should be all in on Rashee Rice, especially at his discounted price right now.
Absolutely love it. And then a tight end, Juwan Johnson, had an offseason injury. I wasn't sure that he was going to be ready for the start of the season, but seems to be 100%. Will have to compete, of course, with Taysom Hill, like everyone in the Saints does at every single position. But I had kind of just like he might have been somebody who was dropped this offseason. Do you think, though, that like is he just a tight end 2 or somebody you might flex in tight end premium, or do you think there's some upside that he might actually be a full-time starter one day?
No, I'm out. I think he's just done. Let's face it, the Saints offense is not great. Derek Carr is not great. They need a new coach. They need a new quarterback, which they may get both by midseason. And that person is not going to be beholden to Juwan Johnson, who is older. I just don't see a world where he is someone you put in your lineup that you're like, yes, that's going to work this week. Even if it's a great matchup, you're never going to be like, yes, I'm solid on Juwan Johnson. It might be a desperation when those, we have 6 teams on bye and you're like hope and a prayer. I just don't think he'll ever be a guy on your roster that you're like confident starting him. And if I'm never confident in starting him, I don't want him on my roster because he's just a roster clog at that point.
No, I think that's a good point. I think that's probably where I am with him as well. He's still a riser, but I think I'm still below consensus on him. And if I could get just about anything for him in a dynasty league, I would take it. Let's take our second break. When we come back, we're going to talk a few more preseason fallers. And then looking at the clock, we are definitely going to have time for some of your week 1 start sit questions. So we will put Dustin to the test. I know we all like it's every fantasy analyst's favorite part of his job is to tell somebody who to start on a Tuesday afternoon. We'll be right back.
My first hot take of the year. When Sunday football isn't enough.
Dislike that take.
Great take.
That other pregame show will put you over the top.
I'm all in. Let's go viral here.
Every Sunday, all the insight you need on CBS Sports Network.
Let's start this section with a question, actually, because Charles in the chat says Carson Steele's available in his league. He would have to drop Tyrone Tracy. No, do not. Or Jermaine Burton. No, do not.
Nope.
Or Jordan Whittington. Would you rather roster Steele or Whittington?
If it's a PPR league, I'd rather have Whittington. If it's not, I'll take Steele.
Okay. Yeah, I think that one's probably close enough for me to just be like personal preference.
Yeah.
I most likely they're both going to be on the waiver wire in
Yeah.
October in your league, but sure. Matt says in the chat, Wandale Robinson is available on waivers in most of my leagues. And yeah, that's somebody I would rather roster than Carson Steele or Whittington.
Yes, I agree with that. I think Wandale Robinson will be fine. Like, he's the number 2 on an offense, which it's hard to find a number 2 receiver on an offense on your waiver wire in general.
And maybe one day he'll have a quarterback.
Maybe.
Let's talk about the preseason fallers. JJ McCarthy suffers the season-ending injury. We're not going to see him in his rookie year. This is obviously going to impact his value. I know a lot of people, especially during rebuilds, say, you know, somebody gets hurt for the year, go see if you can buy them low, hold them on IR. Are you looking to do that with McCarthy? Were you a McCarthy guy before, and does this hurt him at all in your eyes?
Now, I have to start the statement on I am a Michigan fan.
Okay.
I think this sounds bad, but this is the best thing for McCarthy. We know sitting for a year is better for you as a quarterback. Going out there week 1 of your rookie year is hit or miss at this point. Like, we've seen Jordan Love, we've seen these guys sit for years and be better. I'm still in on JD McCarthy. At the end of the day, when he plays, he's going to have Justin Jefferson, who's arguably the best receiver in football. He's going to have TJ Hawkinson, who's arguably, when healthy, a top 5 tight end. He's going to have Jordan Addison, who I'm down on, but is still a very good wide receiver too. He still has Kevin O'Connell as head coach, who is a good quarterback-friendly coach who understands his quarterbacks and uses them properly. He's probably going to have a decent running back, a young running back, and they'll probably bring in someone who can catch passes, a la Aaron Jones this year. They'll bring someone younger that can do that. They've built that team to protect their quarterback. Cousins had a good year there, and
Right.
Cousins is not that talented. Jaden McCarthy is 20% better than
But
Kirk Cousins.
please
ever
tell me
is.
that you almost just called Kirk Cousins Christian Ponder.
I almost did. Yes.
That's
They're all the same.
fantastic. That would have
They're
been
all
a
the same.
highlight of my week. Okay, I'm going to go through some veterans here. Let's assume that you're not really a contender. Like, you could squint and fool yourself to believe you're a contender. So not like a full rebuild,
Yep.
but you probably should be moving that direction. JJ McCarthy is available. You know that guy's trying to contend and wants a quarterback. Would you trade Matthew Stafford for him?
One quarterback or super flex?
Let's go Superflex.
Yes, I would trade
Okay.
Matthew Stafford for him.
Would you trade Kirk Cousins for him?
Yes.
Geno Smith,
Yes.
Baker Mayfield.
Yes. If I'm trading Stafford, I have to trade Baker. I think Stafford and Baker are the two. I think Kirk Cousins and Geno Smith have 6 games to their name left before they're
Okay.
replaced.
Deshaun Watson,
Yes. I have too many question marks there. He is so scary for me.
Jared Goff.
No, I would not trade Jared Goff for him. I think having
You know-
Amon St. Brown is the same as having Justin Jefferson. I think Laporta is slightly better than Hawkinson. I think Gibbs is better than any running back they'll be able to get in. And I think Jameson Williams can be better than Jordan Addison.
Kendre Miller, another guy who's hurt and falling, and his head coach hates his guts.
Hates him.
Like, just terrible, terrible example of leadership, the way he talks about him in the media. I feel bad for Kendre Miller. What I really make me feel bad, though, if I'm rostering him in a dynasty league that does not have IR spots, like, do you definitely have to hold on to him?
No, you should be trading Kendre Miller for anything you can get. He's not efficient when he is playing. Like, he averaged 3.8 yards per carry last year on only like 44 carries. So you expect with lower numbers a higher efficiency. So he's not really efficient. He only had one good college year, and the Saints are going to have a new head coach, and that coach has not drafted Kendre Miller, has not seen Kendre Miller play, and all he's heard about Kendre Miller is how he's horrible and can't stay healthy from Dennis Allen, who hates Kendre Miller. So if I can sell Kendre Miller for anything at this point, I'm selling him as fast as I can.
Would you drop Kendre Miller?
So I would probably drop Kendre Miller right now.
Okay. Troy Franklin. This one personally hurts me because
Yeah.
I was a big Troy Franklin guy before the draft, and then he fell. I was like, yeah, but then he landed with his college quarterback, and I love that. But I've become convinced that Sean Payton actually hates smaller wide receivers, and he hates so much that he drafts them and stashes him at the end of his roster. He can't play on his team or anyone else's. But again, it's just one preseason. They haven't even played a game yet.
Yeah.
How out are you on Troy Franklin?
In on Troy Franklin, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Let's remember that wide receivers are not supposed to come into the league and be superstars right away. That's just not the norm, right? We've seen it from Jamar Chase and Jefferson and Jordan Addison. But let's remember, like, JSN is still a good receiver that we didn't have a great first year. Troy Franklin may have a down year, but he should be better. The opportunity in front of him is open, right? We just talked about Greg Dulcich possibly being the number 2 because there's no one behind Portland Sutton. We got, Devon Vele, who's playing ahead of Troy Franklin, but playing with your college quarterback chemistry matters. So I think that's going to be important. I'm not sure how long Sean Payton is meant for Denver. Like, he could be out midseason, probably at the end of the year. So you get a new coach in who can utilize Franklin at his 6'3". Yes, he's 180 pounds, but he's got some speed. You can utilize that chemistry. So I'm buying Troy Franklin right now at the dip. We just don't know, right? Because here's the deal. If Dulcich gets hurt again, who steps up? Adam Troutman? I mean, who's opposite Cortland Sutton? Cortland Sutton goes down. That's Troy Franklin. So there's so many pathways that he can get into opportunities and snaps and targets this year that I'm all about it right now.
Okay, so you were earlier, and I know this isn't a straight up trade. You were selling Jerome Ford. You are buying, somebody's coming to you wanting Jerome Ford. They've got Troy Franklin. What do they have to include?
We probably have to include, I think you can trade Jerome Ford for a second round pick, and I think you can trade Troy Franklin for a 4th. So if you said, "Hey, give me Troy Franklin and a second for Jerome Ford," I'd take it because I think Franklin is just a throw-in piece at that point. Okay. I'm happy to have him thrown in. So that's how I would go to trade. I go, "Hey, you want Jerome Ford? Give me a second. Let's just throw in, Franklin just an extra piece so I don't have an empty spot, right?" And then you kind of get him for free.
I started at the beginning of the preseason getting excited about Pat Freiermuth because Arthur Smith's Falcons threw 32% of their passes to tight ends last year, and Deontay Johnson was gone. And I think no matter how bad Russell Wilson or Justin Fields are, they've got a massive quarterback upgrade. Yep. And then Arthur Smith did Arthur Smith things in the preseason and played Darnell Washington about as much as he played Pat Freiermuth, which makes sense because he needs another offensive tackle because the offensive tackles he has can't block anybody. Make me feel better about Pat Freiermuth, please.
Listen, everyone was down on Pat Freiermuth because they thought they were getting Brandon Ayuk, which was never going to happen. Who's the number 2 target on that team? It's George Pickens and then Van Jefferson? No, it's probably Pat Freiermuth. He's still young. He's only 26. For Dynasty, you're looking at a guy who's going to be 27, entering free agency next year, and probably the top tight end in that class. Look at teams who need a tight end next year. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Jets, New Orleans, the Chargers, probably Indianapolis. Who would you rather have? You'd rather have Freiermuth or Mo Alley Cox or Kylan Granson or Mike Gesicki or Hayden Hurst or Ty Conklin? Like, Pat Freiermuth is the guy. I think he's going to be fine this year. I think he'll finish in that tight end 9 to 12 range. Like, he'll just be in a tight end 1 range because I just don't have anyone else. Russell Wilson is still a good quarterback. Let's not forget he got benched because of the contract, not because of poor play. He had really good numbers. He got let go because of the contract, not because of poor play. He's going to be the starter. Justin Fields is never going to see the field unless Russell Wilson gets injured. Russell Wilson can support a tight end. Now, he's never really done it in his career because that's not the system Seattle ran. Arthur Smith loves his tight ends. He's going to roll out, Darnell Washington out there as well. But Pat Freiermuth is such a more competent pass catcher athlete than Darnell Washington is. Darnell Washington has always been the 6'0" lineman. He made that one spectacular catch at the combine when someone's just lobbing a ball to him. Great, that's wonderful. Let's see you do it in a game. He's never done in a game. So I'm all in on Pat Freiermuth this year.
Let's do some week 1 dynasty start or sit, and cousin Ernest going to get us started with a tight end premium. He needs to start 2 of these 3 tight ends, Cade Otton, Dawson Knox, Tyler Conklin. This is the stuff I'm talking about. We are deep league tight end premium. Pick 2.
I mean, first of all, it's definitely Cade Otton. I think he should be started in almost every league that you have, unless you have one of the top 5 guys. I think he's there with Baker Mayfield. That offense has just got the band back together and they're starting over. I'm willing to roll out Ty Conklin as a 1-week trial this this week. With Aaron Rodgers, we don't know what he's going to be like. We just didn't see it with the Jets. Obviously, we saw 4 snaps. I have always been a Dawson Knox believer. I think he eats into Dalton Kincaid. I am not a believer in Dalton Kincaid as much as I am a Bills fan. I have a Knox jersey. I do not have a Kincaid jersey for a reason. Knox will always get his 4 targets, and Kincaid will get 5, and they'll have similar yardage and probably close. It's just a touchdown difference. I'm willing to risk it week 1 on Ty Conklin to see what you have and see if maybe he is the number 2 for Aaron Rodgers. If not, I think I would roll out Dawson Knox every other week.
Yeah, I think that Knox is more that guy that you're just hoping he catches the touchdown, and Kincaid backers are hoping that he disappears.
Yes.
But the receivers might be uninvolved enough to where they can both be like not good, but serviceable. I would definitely say Conklin and Otten are my top 2. And it might be that you're like, if there's a waiver wire tight end that pops up, you're dropping Dawson Knox to pick up that guy as soon as a week from today. We've got a start 1. Jordan Addison, which we don't know for sure that he's playing, Josh Palmer, Zach Moss, or Cade Otton. Probably a good time to remind you guys, you should tell us how many points a catch is worth. But let's call it Addison, Moss. You're not gonna have to make a decision on any of these guys before we know about Addison, probably. So Addison, Otton, Moss, or Palmer. We'll say it's full PPR.
I'm gonna go Moss. I worry about the Vikings receivers with Sam Darnold. I just don't know what that's going to look like. I think Aaron Jones takes a bulk to that. Now, Cade Otton, who I like, is also the 3rd receiver on the team behind Evans and Godwin. Palmer should be the number 1 for Justin Herbert. Maybe. I don't know. At least I know Zach Moss, at worst case, is probably in a 50-50 split.
Okay, I do have to correct something. It is full PPR. Okay. I agree with the Moss call, except it's also 1 point tight end premium. So tight end premium, it's going to be basically Moss or Otton.
Yeah, I agree. Moss or Otton is the one. I think I still lean Moss. I just wonder if Otton can get enough work.
I have Moss at 10.5 points. I have Otton and tight end premium at 9.8. So I agree with that. Let's see if we.
My fear is that Tampa Bay doesn't have to throw as much on the Commanders,
right?
And Cincinnati can get up on New England and just run the ball late in the game.
And the way the Commanders were against wide receiver 1s last year, Mike Evans might just have like 4 catches for 150 yards, and so there's not as many offensive plays. Ramondre or Moss?
I'm going Ramondre. Like clear number 1 versus a potential number 1 is where I lean there.
That's another one that I'm really interested to see. Like, how many times does Antonio Gibson touch the ball, and does Ramondre come off the field on 3rd downs? I would also go Ramondre, but certainly one where I'm going to be watching. We got any new questions? People are doubting Dalton Kincaid. I just want Matt to know this is not me. I'm not sold on Kincaid's talent.
I'm sold on the talent. The problem is his talent doesn't always win out, and people think that is. Kyle Pitts is talented, doesn't win out for your fan, like doesn't produce. Kincaid and Knox are very similar in their skill set, and we saw it in games even last year at the end of the season when they played. There was games that Knox outscored Kincaid for fantasy. They're going to split enough of the work where they're going to be half a tight end each. Now, the weeks where Kincaid really shined was when Knox was injured. He had great games. I just don't see that happening with Knox back. Josh Allen loves Dawson Knox. The Bills love Dawson Knox. Like Buffalo loves Dawson Knox. Like he's going to be part of that team. That's my biggest fear for Dalton Kincaid. Yes, he's talented, but talent doesn't always win out. We've seen it with Khalil Herbert, super talented, and the Bears just wouldn't use him. And everybody's going, why are you so talented? It just doesn't always work out that way. Talent doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the superstar on the team.
So this is one that I think, and I lost the comment now because they're coming in fast, but I think people are going to have this question. So Marvin Harrison Jr. was drafted as a must-start wide receiver, but it's his first game in the NFL. Are you starting Marvin Harrison Jr., Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin? You've got to sit one. Who are you sitting?
Sitting Marvin Harrison. We've seen it from Deebo. We've seen it from Godwin. I'm a risk-adverse player, so I will always take the known commodity over potential upside. And if I'm wrong on Marvin Harrison, I go, okay, I was wrong, and I played it safe versus I swung for the fences and struck out.
I would sit Godwin, but I can't understand that. And I think if you're risk averse, that is the safest thing to do. We've got a David Montgomery or Xavier Worthy question. And I was a little lower on Montgomery than I expected to be, but I would still definitely start him over the rookie in week 1.
Yeah, I'm still starting Dave Montgomery over rookie, especially with Rashee Rice playing. We just don't know what that Chiefs passing game looks like. Like, is Worthy Tyreek Hill or is he MVS? I don't know. And that range of outcome is so wide. I'll take Montgomery, who is David Montgomery, who's going to get 12, 15 carries a game.
Angelo is seeing Trey Benson dropped in a lot of leagues. I'm assuming these are
Ooh.
not dynasty leagues, but he had a rough preseason week 1, and Amari DeMarcado may or may not be the third down back early in the year. But I've not changed my opinion or ranking of Trey Benson at all since the start of the preseason. Have you?
No, I have not. I think Trey Benson is a solid running back who looked good in college, looked good at the Combine Pro Day. This whole offseason's been nothing but solid work. James Conner is still there, but I'm okay with Trey Benson being a slow start. Like, if he has to maybe be the third guy behind DeMarcado for 2 weeks, I'm okay with that. Like, I didn't draft Trey Benson to be a starter in my league right now. So you drafted him to hopefully have him mid-season where he can be a guy. Maybe James Conner misses sometimes and he becomes the guy. I'm okay with him being a slow start. So I'm not dropping him. I haven't changed on Trey Benson at all.
Ben says over under on Russ healthy starts. So I'm assuming this means if he stays healthy all year, over under on 9 starts for Russell Wilson.
Over. If he's healthy, he starts all 17 games.
I think that's completely true. I think there's almost no chance Mike Tomlin is benching Russell Wilson if they are in contention. And with their schedule, they don't play a division opponent until after their bye. They might start 5-3. 100% with you there. Brian Thomas Jr., JSN, or David Montgomery, you've got to start 2 of these guys. I know we're starting David Montgomery. Do you want JSN or do you want Brian Thomas? There's no safe option here.
This week, I'm taking JSN. Tyler Lockett is dealing with a leg injury, so that may hinder him. So I think JSN can see an increase in snaps and production this week. I don't think it carries to all season, but I'm going to start JSN week 1 over Brian Thomas, who I've been the historic Trevor Lawrence is just a mid-level quarterback, and I've been on this stance for a year and a half now, and people gave me a lot of crap when I said it a year and a half ago. I don't know if he can support Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram. I just don't think he can support all those guys. I think Brian Thomas could be odd man out there as a rookie trying to learn the system.
We talked to Godwin once already. We were split on whether to start him over Marvin Harrison Jr. What about Keenan Allen? Keenan Allen versus Godwin in week 1.
I mean, how much does Keenan Allen weigh now? Is he up to 370? Is he what's his weight now? Do we know? I mean, that's been the talk. Is he's bulked up again? I'll go Godwin because I think the volume will be there over Keenan Allen, who has potentially of DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet. I think there's more mouths to feed in Chicago with a rookie quarterback, even though he's supposed to be great.
Okay, Metrius in the chat. I love you and I appreciate you, but I'm not going to read the chat. We cannot do the here's every player on my team, fill out my entire lineup. You fill out the obvious ones. Give us the last 2 or 3 for your last spot, and we'll try to figure that out, like Andrew did. Gus Bus or Khalil Shakir?
Well, that's a tough one because I think Gus Edwards is the 50-50 split with J.K. Dobbins in that backfield. I think he gets the goal line work. I've been a big Keon Coleman supporter and believer this offseason for the Bills. I think Khalil Shakir is good. Again, I wonder about the volume, so I'll take Gus Bus for the touchdown upside this week.
Here we go, Metrius. Love or Purdy, Mostert or Moss. This is how you get it done. Purdy actually was one of the guys who fell the most for me from regular season to week 1. The Jets were the best team against quarterbacks last year. I think they're still going to be fantastic. I would start Love and Mostert here. Yeah,
I'm starting Mostert over Moss. If you would have asked me 3 days ago, I probably would have said Love. I think I'm leaning Purdy now with Trent Williams getting signed this morning, with Ayuk getting signed. I think that team's back together. It sounds like Christian McCaffrey's fully healthy. Yes, the Jets are good against corners. We have Sauce Gardner. They have some good secondary, but I think with McCaffrey and Kittle, I think Purdy can still get it done.
Last one, JSN or Deontay Johnson. We're going to test just how safe you want to be.
I'll probably roll Deontay Johnson, which sounds really gross, but I am a safe player, so I will take the number 1 on the team versus a potential 2 on a team.
I 100% agree. Ben, this is a fantastic question. Would you be my co-manager? This typing is getting old. I know I'm asking a lot of you guys by typing all of the words in. It'd be nice. Voice to text, I think, probably works if you're on your phone. I don't want to burden you guys too much with asking for help. Dustin, thank you so much for being on today's show. Before we go, I just tell everybody what you're going to be doing this season and where they can find your work.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the 13. So THEDUNIT 13. It's the best place to find all my work I write for Fantrax. I'll be doing our wide receiver and tight end sleepers and streamers that come out every Tuesday morning. I am the content director at Dynasty Pro, so I'll be spearheading our content there. Then you can catch me Tuesday nights live on YouTube, Bridge the Gap podcast, 10 p.m. Eastern. Tonight we have Wendy early. We're talking about making friends through fantasy and how that works and how you go about doing that. So it's been a couple weeks. This is episode 6 of the Bridge the Gap podcast. So I appreciate you guys checking me out there. Tuesday nights live, 10 p.m. Eastern.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Nada. Thank you to the chat. You guys were fantastic.
Yes, you guys are
We've
crazy.
got 300 people still watching live. That's fantastic. 45 minutes into the show. Really appreciate you guys. Again, if you really want to help us out at the beginning of the season, this is when everybody's checking out podcasts. Go to wherever you find podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. Write something nice. If you also put a question on there, I'll go check those this week, see if there's any recent questions. We'll answer those on the show. Until then, we will talk to you next Tuesday.